Good morning, everyone. This is a good day to learn something new because we are blessed with Oli in the background. So on the screen, you can see I have sidebar and it is collapsed. When I take my mouse over it, it expands. So we are going to learn how to design a auto collapsible sidebar. One of the advantage of using such sidebar, it gets back into the place when you don't need it. The advantage would be, it saves lot of real estate, so you can use that real estate to show other important information when you don't need it. You can also highlight the menu like I'm doing now. So when you take your mouse over a specific menu item, I'm highlighting that menu item, giving the impression that that menu item is been selected. So let so this is not only elegant solution yet the simple one, and it is better than what that comes in the box with the Blazor web assembly. So without a further ado, let's understand how to design this one. So like always, go ahead and crack open a Visual Studio, select Blazor web assembly, and click continue. Leave the configuration by default as default, or you can modify the configuration based on your requirements. Click continue. Here, give the name of the project. Let's call it new sidebar. Location is preferred to you, then click on create. Alright, now it has been created. I'm going to run this application to show you how the default sidebar looks like in Blazor WebAssembly. Okay, so on the left hand side you can see that's the blue color or bluish purple color sidebar is present in the Blazor WebAssembly, and it's always there. It's not collapsing or doing nothing. They just click action. Whereas this is much better than whatever this is. So let's convert this into this. Let's first understand which component is being used to show the nav bar. Under shared folder, there's a component called navmenu.razor. This component is responsible to show that blue sidebar on the Blazor application. So as you can see, there's a counter and there is a fetch data. And then the counter and the fetch data. This is what's shown on the UI. And then this component is being called inside our main layout.razor component. So what we are going to do, we are going to create new component, and instead of this we are going to call that component. So let's just go ahead and do that. Right click, add, and click on new file, then select ASP.NET Core and razor page or razor component. Here we are going to give it a name. Let's call it Autohide sidebar. Click on create. Autohide sidebar says component 1. Now let's comment out the nav menu and call our component that we just created. So what's supposed to happen when we run the application? Component 1 would be there instead of nav menu. Let me run this application and see if the changes has taken place or not. Alright, we can see the component 1 has taken the place. Now let's modify the component 1 to give the impression of auto collapsal. Okay, so what we need, let's get rid of this h3 first and add outer div. Outer div is going to act as outer container, so let's give the CSS class name and call it container. Okay, now we need a CSS file which will represent this component. So go ahead and add new file, click on web and CSS file. While naming, give the name of the razor file, which would be autohide sidebar dot razor, and since this is a CSS file, add extension of .css and create. Once you create that, the file will get created beneath our component, saying that this file is isolated for this component. Now inside this file we need the CSS class of container, so say .container. What do we want? We want to show the menu items in grid structures, column wise. So in a one row, in one column, but multiple rows. So technically just one column. If I go back to our website, so this is how we are showing, right? All the menu items in one column. So we can use flex layout here. Let me use display property. The value would be flex, and the flex direction would be column. What else we need? We need a background color. I do have one background color. I'm just going to copy that background color from here, paste it here, and then we need a width, right? So let's give it a width. Let's keep 6 rem, 6 times of the default font size. That should do it. Let's see how this changes looks like. Okay, now we can see something is coming along. We can see that rectangle box, which is going to be our sidebar, is looking like a sidebar on a web page. Okay, let's modify a little bit. What else we need? We can also modify this, right? We can give the proper edges, so it looks much better than these sharp edges. So that would be round radius. My bad. It's border radius, and so border radius has 4 properties. Top left, it starts from top left, then top left, then top right, then bottom right and bottom left, something like this. Okay, so top left we are doing nothing, so 0. On the top right, let's just take some border. Let's take 10 pixel. On bottom right, let's take 10 pixel, and on the bottom left we are doing nothing, so leave it at 0. And let's save this and run the application again. Okay, now we are seeing, see, those edges are applied to the bottom right and top right. This is much better. Okay, let's modify. Now let's add that collapsible and expand mechanism. So for collapsing and expanding, we need 2 events. For expanding, we need mouse enter. So yeah, when the mouse enter, we are going to expand the sidebar, and when mouse leave, we are going to collapse the sidebar. So let's first add mouse enter. In order to add event, use the @ sign and then use the event name, so mouse enter. And here let's give the method handler or event handler for this method, for this event. Okay, we need, let's call expand sidebar. That is the name of the method. Let's create this method inside a code section, private void expand sidebar. So every time mouse is over the sidebar, this method is going to get triggered. Same way, we also need event for on mouse leave. And let's call collapse sidebar. Okay, now that we got our event handlers, let's write a logic. So we need to toggle the boolean variable every time it's expand or collapse. So for that we need one boolean variable. Let's create one. Is expanded. Is expanded will be true when mouse is over the sidebar. It would be false when mouse is not on the sidebar. Now we can use this boolean variable to toggle between CSS that would be responsible to handle the width of the sidebar. And how do you use a C# variable to toggle in between CSS in Blazor? There's an elegant way to do it. Here, just use @ and open and close the bracket. Inside the bracket, use the C# variable, in our case which is expanded, and use the ternary operation. So when is expanded is true, we are going to call expand CSS class. Else we are going to call collapse CSS class. And why I'm getting error there? That may not be anything. Yeah, that's just a placeholder. Okay, now we need to design those CSS classes. So in expand we need to handle the width, so we don't need the width there anymore. In the main container we are going to handle the width with these 2 new classes. So when it is expanded, size would be 6 rem, 6 into 16 pixels. One rem is 16 pixel because that is the default size of the font size. Expand and collapse. When it is collapsed, let's say 3 rem. Now this should do it. Let's see if this works or not. Oh yeah, so beautiful. So what happens, I'll tell you what happens behind the scene. So every time the mouse is on the sidebar, this method get triggered and it toggles this boolean variable to be true. And when it is true, it toggles this CSS class. And what does this CSS class says? Make the size of the sidebar to be 6 rem. And when I take the mouse off, it triggers this method, which makes this boolean value to be false. And when the boolean value to be false, it calls collapsible CSS class. And what does this CSS class does? It reduce the size of the sidebar. Beautiful. Now what we can do next, let's add some menu items to the sidebar so that it would look like sidebar here. So for menu items, our goal is to create menu item which look like this. Here what I have, we have two things. We have icon and then we have a text, the name of the menu. So we can design a nav link. Inside a nav link we can have a span, and inside a span we can have another span to represent the text or the name of the menu. Let's see how we can do that. So just enter here, and inside that create one nav link. Inside the nav link we are going to create a span, and inside the span we are going to create another span. Now let's give some meaningful CSS classes name to these things. The nav link, let's call it menu item. The outer span would be, since this our span is representing the icon, let's call it menu icon. This class is representing the name of the menu, so let's call it menu name. Okay, now we also need to have the icon CSS. Let's steal that from our old nav menu. OI home. Let's copy this and use it where we have icon specified, and inside a span let's call it home. Okay, so this represents one menu item. The outer span represent the icon, that's why we have this icon classes here, and then inner one is represent just a text. We are going to design this CSS classes, but let's first see if this is even able to display on the UI. We are even able to display that on the UI or not. Yes, we are. Okay, now let's modify some CSS to make it look pretty. So here we need this class. Let's take menu icon, and we also need menu name, if I'm not wrong. Let's give it a color. So color white would be better because it would contrast on the green color that we have for the background. See, now I'm just going to save it and you will see the changes are reflected. The menu item is too close to the top, so let's add some padding. 1 rem will do it. Okay, now it's looking much better. Now next, what we need next is, when you collapse, you don't want to show the name of the menu. You only have to show the name of the menu when you expand. So for that we need dot expand class, which is this class, and menu name class. So when both of these classes have been applied to the div, then what's supposed to do? Then we are supposed to show the name of the menu. So that means we need first to hide the name of the menu. So let's make visibility hidden by default and show when you apply the expand CSS class. So make it visible. Let's see if the change. Okay, perfect. Now let's add couple of more icons to the mix. For that, I'm just going to copy the nav link and paste it twice. The second item is the counter item, if I'm not wrong. Yes, it's the counter. So let's take the counter. Let's change the name, and we also need to change the icon style, which is plus here. So just copy and paste there. Last one, let's call it data, and the icon is list rich. Copy that, paste it here. Okay, so I'm not seeing the icon of the data. Maybe let's see what I had. Oh, I missed the L. Save it again. Okay, now I can see three icons and three data. The counter is going below the icon because of the width of the sidebar. So we need to increase the width a little bit. Let's make 7 rem and see. Okay, that suffices. Now another problem I'm seeing is that when it is collapsed, the icon says this gap, and when it is expanded, there is no gap. So we need to make the position fixed. For that, let's add the position to be absolute. Okay, save this. Okay. Now we need to add the left margin between the icon and between the icon and the name of the menu item. So go to the menu item, add margin left. Let's say 0.2 rem. That should be enough. Okay, now we are talking. Fine. Now what is the next step that we have to do? We have to highlight which icon has been selected. In order to do that, let's add the hover. Let's add the event of hover. So on the menu item, so menu item is the nav link item. On the menu item, have the event of hover, and when it is hover, what we have to do, we have to highlight the menu name. So for that, what we are going to do, so when you hover over it, we are going to change the color. In fact, I have the color which looks like a highlighted color, so let's make it that color. And then we are also going to increase the height little bit. So let's do transform and scale to 1.2. So 1.2 means if 1 is 100%, 1.2 means 120%. So we are going to increase the height of the text by 20%. Let's see what are we seeing. All right, so as you can see, height is increasing. Let's also do the same thing with icons as well. So copy the same thing, and here instead of name, just mention icon. Save it again. Okay. I guess we need to increase the width little bit more, because once the icon's height has been increased, sorry, item's name has been increased, it needs more space to fit that content. Okay. We also need to add more left spacing or left margin, so let's increase that to be 0.5. Okay, now it's looking good. All right, now let's add little bit animation, so it looks like, it's look like, let's add delay to the animation, so it will give the better transition feeling. So for that, let's do the transform transition, and we want to delay the transform. So transition let's do transform. We want to delay the transform. Let's delay by 0.5 second. Or let's delay by 1 second. And then what happened here? Transform 1 second, and then let's ease it out. So if I save this, all right, you can see it's working very nicely. But let's reduce the delay by 0.5 second. Okay, now it's looking much better. Now do the same thing for icon as well, and save it. Okay, There's one more thing we can do. What Let's change the opacity of the other item list and only show the opacity for the item that has been selected. So for that, by default, we can go to menu name here and change the opacity to 0.3, and when you hover over it, then we can change opacity to be 1. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, now it looks like we are highlighting the item. Also make it 0.5, so at least we have to show the items. Okay, now what we can do, we can also add the opacity delay to the opacity. So let's just say opacity city, let's have 0.5 delay, and ease it out. So I guess there is a comma in between. Copy the same thing and paste it here. 0.5 seconds and save it. Let's see what. Okay, I guess there is one more thing we can do. We can change the direction of the transform. So let me first add comma here. For that, use transform origin. Transform origin, yeah, that's the property. And then select from left to, let's go to the right. Let's see how that looks. Save it and come back. Okay, now let's make it left to center. Okay, this is much better. Perfect. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in this video. Here's the final solution. It is published on my website. The only change between this and what we have created is the icons. The icons are the bootstrap icons. You can easily just use the CDN in your application and use these icons. And I have also created another video to design, which explains how to create a tic-tac-toe application using Blazor. That video and other videos with respect to Blazor plus the code for this, you can find everything in the description. You can download it, it's free. And if you want me to create another videos, let me know. I'll create another videos explaining more on Blazor and data structures. Thank you so much.